Everyone, I'm Dino Bidala, and welcome to tonight's Dino Bidala Show on Sirius XM Channel 127. It is Monday, September 13th, and over the weekend, we commemorated the 20th anniversary of 9/11. It was moving in a lot of ways. I'm sure it caused a lot to reflect on their own lives, where they've gone in 20 years. It also made many of us, including myself, reflect on our nation, where we've gone in the past 20 years and where we stand right now. And 20 years ago, the biggest threat to our nation from a national security point of view was foreign terrorists. Now, it is domestic terrorists, primarily by the right, who are white supremacists. That's the words of the FBI Director, Christopher Wray. That's not my words. It's remarkable in 20 years to be where we are. Right now, the United States, I honestly think the battle is no longer between Democratic policies versus Republican policies. It's truly a battle between democracy versus GOP fascism. And it truly is a fascist movement. This is not, I don't say that like to mirror their Democrats or socialists. I say it's a fascist movement because academically it's correct. I've had experts on my show who have talked about this. You know, fascism at its essence is really just simply using undemocratic means to acquire or retain political power, plus, you need this plus, violence. Without violence, it's really not fascism. It could be, but when you read people like Madeleine Albright's book, Fascism, A Warning, she talks about whatever else fascism could be defined as, violence is always a part of it. On January 6th, we had that violence. We had a terrorist attack perpetrated by Donald Trump's supporters and the GOP. At that moment, we were at a crossroads. The GOP could have chosen to reject fascism, reject Donald Trump, and move forward as a political party. Instead, they have celebrated Trump. They bend their knee to him. They surround him. Over 55% of Republicans in a CBS poll in late July look at the January 6th act of terrorism as an act defending freedom. So you have GOP voters on board with undemocratic means before, which is voter suppression. And now couple that with violence, and you have a fascist movement. This is where we are. Look, our nation's at a crossroads. Everybody can feel it. Our nation's at a crossroads. We all can feel it. These are not normal times. Which way is it going to go? Is it going to remain a democratic republic, or is it going to go down the authoritarian track that the GOP already was under for years, and now adding violence? It's a fascist track. And, you know, I was tweeting earlier today that it's not fair in any way. I'm not being, strident about this, to compare today's GOP with the Nazis. The Nazis were a unique level of evil. But fascism is fascism. The GOP is a fascist movement, like the Nazi movement. And here's what's worrisome is we don't know the depths this GOP will sink. What we do know, there are very alarming things going on, from non-truly violent to very violent. In that regards, we'll cover it on my show on Thursday at a school board meeting in Southern California. Some local parents or community activists, I don't even know if they're parents, essentially stormed a Board of Education meeting there. And while they weren't violent like January 6th, they went past the guards. They got in. No one stopped them. And the Board of Education members there in Poway, California, essentially fled and left the Board of Education. And what did these people do that took it over? They voted themselves in as the new Board of Education. So they essentially overturned the election of the people who elected the Board of Education and made themselves the new Board of Education. Obviously, there's no legal power there, but this is their mindset. And worst of all, there was police officers right there standing there. And the police officer said to these people, "You're going to have to leave now." And they yelled back, no, we're the new Board of Education. I should have added, they were white people yelling at white police officers. If they were black or brown or Muslim, then the police never would have taken it. But when they're white, you can get away with that. And the problem is there was not even any record whatsoever that the people who did this were arrested. So that emboldens more of that. So you've got that. Then you have more violence. On 9/11, George W. Bush, we'll talk about it more on my show, linked 9/11 with the January 6th terrorists. It's very clear they are. They hate our democracy. They defile symbols of our democracy because they despise it. They want power for different reasons, but they still want power. And, earlier today, we found out a man with Nazi and other white supremacist symbols on his truck. He's from California, but for some reason in Washington, D.C. by the Democratic National Committee, and the cops pulled him over and he had a machete and other weapons that are not legal in Washington, D.C. He told the police he was on patrol and espoused white supremacist views. Is he a Trump supporter? It's hard to say, but this Saturday, there's a big rally in D.C. and other cities in support of the January 6th terrorists, calling them political prisoners, which is what Donald Trump and others on the right have called them. So we're going to have our first pro-terrorist rally happening this Saturday in Washington, D.C. and other cities. This is building right in front of our eyes. You know, there were times, I'm reading a great book by Winston Churchill called The Gathering Storm. And in the book, it talks about the times that the French and the British could have stopped the rise of Nazi Germany. He said there were numerous times in about a 5 or 6 year period where they saw the German nation at that time under Hitler violating the Treaty of Versailles, building a big military, an air force. And they just sort of hoped for the best. While, you know, Churchill was raising alarm bells, more of the more progressive people were like, hey, it's going to be fine. Everything will be fine. We saw that worked out. I think this is the same moment right now. It's really going to be a question of, does our Department of Justice charge Donald Trump? Or does he continue to walk free and spew the exact same lies that incited the January 6th terrorist attack? He is literally now saying the election tomorrow in California is rigged, and so are the Republicans. There's no proof of it. They just want to delegitimize our democracy. Why? It's simple. They don't want democracy. They want to justify for their base the reason we're not going to have elections in the future is because they're all corrupt and rigged by the Democrats anyway. We can't trust them. So I know it's a little dark. This is the reality. And I really believe in being blunt, talking about the truth of what we're dealing with, and then coming up with a plan to deal with it. So I'll talk about that more on my show today. My show is live 6 to 9 p.m., Sirius XM channel 127. If you don't subscribe to Sirius XM, come to the website. There are free trials. Join it. Get a free trial. You're going to love it. Call into my show. Be a part of our family. If you want progress, stay active. We got a lot of progress to work for. Thanks for tuning into the preview of tonight's Dino Budala Show.